Support comes from the Arizona Inn, a four-diamond, family-owned historic resort hotel and restaurant on Elm Street near the U of A. Information is at arizonainn.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Jim Ninsel and we're here to talk Zona Politics. Today we begin with State Representative Pamela Powers-Hanley, who has been hard at work at the Arizona legislature since the session began last month. Representative Powers-Hanley, welcome to Zona Politics, and let's start with the Equal Rights Amendment. You are actually pushing some legislation to see if Arizona will ratify the ERA.
Right now, the ERA bills and Michelle Ugenti-Rita's bill to make the marriage age 18, all those are being stopped by the Judiciary Committee Chair, Eddie Farnsworth. So we got a log jam with women's issues in the Judiciary Committee, but we're going to try to move that along.
What was your reaction to the governor's call for more education funding in his budget?
Well, I think that's a good idea. I don't think just getting more not slot machines, but lottery machines is going to do it. You know, that was one of his big ideas. We'll just make people gamble more and then get some more funding.
You know, as I understand it, the lottery is basically a tax on people who are bad at math.
Bad at math,
so.
Exactly. In fact, we had a classic example of the prison to pipeline. School to prison pipeline the other day. They had prisoners putting new signs on the front doors of the House of Representatives, and they spelled representative wrong.
Beautiful, just wonderful. But in terms of education funding, what do you want to see this year?
Well, the Democrats are talking about raising the teacher pay again. We proposed 4% last year, but 4% wouldn't even take us from 50 to 49. Senator Farley's talking about 20%. I've said, well, what if we made a goal to take us from 50 to 40? How much would that cost? And so in relationship to that, Representative Freese and I have both have bills going right now that would eliminate some of the tax giveaways. And we're using this sort of as a demonstration project, okay? So if you want more funding for JTED or K through 12 or community college, here's where we could get it. You know, doubtful that any of those would pass, but we want to show that this is where the money is and we have the money. We just have to make the choices to get rid of some of those giveaways. And
Pima College was zeroed out a few years ago.
It was zeroed out.
Still receiving zero.
No money.
Any likelihood that would be restored in any way in the upcoming year? Well,
you know, we still have a tight budget. You know, the governor has made noises. You know, with the Trump plan that they passed, Arizona is actually going to get more money from that plan because of the way they changed the income tax deductions. And the governor was saying, well, maybe we don't want to keep that money. Well, I think we should keep that money because that would give us more cash to spend. I think that you know, there's a lot that we could do, but we have to have the guts to do it.
You've sponsored a number of bills involving private prisons. What sort of changes do you want to see happen through this legislation? Yeah,
those were bills with Representative Engel and those, you know, those.
Criminal justice reform efforts?
Yes, she and Representative Stringer are working together on those, and we'd like to see sentencing reform. Unfortunately, it looks like Eddie Farnsworth has another bill that would increase sentencing rather than decrease sentencing. We would like to see, you know, not have Arizona be one of the, you know, biggest prison populations in the world, really, not just in the United States.
And in terms of private prisons, is there a move away from those in the state at this point?
Not that I see. Not that I see.
So we're still putting a lot of effort into privatizing the prison system.
There's no new beds right now. That's what I hear.
You've co-sponsored some legislation that would require charter schools to turn over their property to the state. Why do you think this is important?
Well, right now, when they build the charter school with state money, and if they go out of business or they decide to sell the school, they keep the money. And so it's state money that they're using to build these buildings, but then when they close the school, they get to keep the profit from the sale.
So it seems like that should revert back to the state.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these charter schools, they're actually spending more on their real estate and their buildings than they do on education.
You know, you and many of your fellow lawmakers have co-sponsored a bill that would reduce the cost of a medical marijuana permit and change the inspection protocol. What's behind this?
Well, there's actually a bipartisan bill sponsored by Senator Borelli and signed by, like you said, many of us. And it has 3 different things on it. One of the things that it has is testing for medical marijuana. So they would be testing the plants and also the edibles. And I've met with the testing facility person, and she said that some of the edibles will have almost no THC in them, and others will have too much. And so there's no quality control. And with the plants, some of the plants could have mold, they could have pesticides, they could have E. coli, and so it's important to see, what people are consuming. So we have the testing part of that bill. They also have, for the Republicans, they have a more regulation on the packaging, like for the gummy bears, because they're trying to say that that's like Joe Camel, that they're marketing to children, except that the kid would have to actually get into the dispensary to see the package. So it's a little different from Joe Camel. And then the third part is the $50 medical marijuana card, which I have a separate bill for that. And so we have the most expensive card in the country, and we're stockpiling all this cash because the original bill said that the card should be no more expensive than it is to run the program. And it's obviously more expensive. So right now we have a card for rich folks. And hopefully by lowering the card fee, more people will be able to afford it and not buy marijuana on the streets.
There's a bill from one of your colleagues, Daniel Hernandez, that would exempt tampons, diapers, baby formula, some similar items from the sales tax. Your thoughts on this bill? Yeah,
I'm actually against that bill. The fiscal note was, we had 2 different estimates for how much it would cost. One was $11 million and one was $30 million. Which it's a lot of money, right?
It's a lot of diapers.
It's a lot of diapers. Well, actually, they're excusing sales tax, and it's city sales tax and state sales tax. So there's a local control issue there in that we would be giving away Tucson city tax also. But my biggest thing is that if our goal is to lift women out of poverty, this bill doesn't go far enough. It saves them a few dollars a month if they buy a giant bag of diapers and a box of tampons. The tax is like under $10, it's like $3 or $4. And so I think that if we want to lift women out of poverty, we should have a solid K-12 education for them and their children, JTED, job training, workforce development, 5 years of TANF. We still have one of the stingiest cash assistance programs for the poor. So there's a lot that we could do to help women and families.
You've also sponsored legislation to bring publicly funded campaigns to the county level so that candidates running for the Board of Supervisors or similar offices could have public funding for their campaigns. Why did you like that idea?
Yes, well, I got that idea after I saw what went on in Tucson in the supervisor's race. Because a few years ago, the Republicans raised the maximum donation for the legislature to $5,000, and it was like around $400 or $500, and they raised the county supervisors to $6,250. And if you look at the campaign finance reports in Pima County, there was a bidding war between who liked sales tax and who liked property tax, and that's where they put their money. And so I think there's too much control of money in our politics, and so I said that the clean elections should be down at the county level and also unpaid boards. And I also had a bill that would roll back campaign finance donations. And so I have 2 different, basically, campaign finance reforms.
And when I was looking at that, it looked as if the county offices in Pima County would be $16,000 to run for office, or was I misreading the legislation? How much money would you give to the candidate?
I don't know that they've totally figured that part out.
Okay.
For the legislature, it's $16,000 for the primary and $24,000 for the general.
Okay, all right.
And so it'd be proportional for how many people they're serving.
Okay, and final question, because we have a minute left here. You've got some legislation asking for $4 million to help with child care subsidies, and why do you think that's an important bit of legislation?
Well, the legislature cut child care subsidies, several years ago, and some of them have been restored, but one of the problems with the foster care system is that children are being removed for neglect, and one of the qualifications for neglect is leaving your child at home. And so you could have a nosy neighbor who reports you for neglect because you left your kid at home. Whether the kid is okay at home or not. And so I think that, again, we need to have solid work schedules for people, and they need to have, consistent childcare. And if they need help with childcare, because it's expensive, it can be, $500 to $800 a month, depending on the quality level. And so it's good to have people have solid childcare that they can depend on, so they can go to work.
All right, we're going to leave it there, but State Representative Pamela Powers-Hanley, thank you so much for joining us here on Zona Politics, and we will be right back with State Senator Andrea D'Alessandro.
Zona Politics is made possible with the generous support of the Loft Cinema, Tucson's independent movie theater. The Loft features independent foreign and documentary films, cult classics, discussions with filmmakers, and much more, including the Loft Film Fest in November. The Loft is located at 3233 East Speedway Boulevard. Showtimes can be found at loftcinema.org. Support for Zona Politics is provided by Hotel Congress in historic downtown Tucson. More information at hotelcongress.com and 622-8848. The Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce serves the business community in the bilingual, bicultural region of the Arizona-Sonora border and is a proud media partner with Zona Politics. Learn more at TucsonHispanicChamber.org.
All of these young people from the community come together, actually get up and do something.
We can do anything!
I think we've attracted a lot of people that are super passionate.
We're here at the No Ban, No Law.
If you come out of college, you have this experience, you know how things run, you have a huge leg up.
People who have ideas and who are dreamers, you know what I mean, who really want to get themselves out there, I think that they should come here.
And we're back with Zona Politics. I'm your host, Jim Ninsel, and my next guest is State Senator Andrea D'Alessandro, who represents Legislative District 2. District 2 includes the south side of Tucson, Green Valley, Sahuarita, and the city of Nogales. Senator D'Alessandro, welcome to Zona Politics.
Thank you very much.
So tell a little bit about your priorities for this legislative session.
Well, Jim, as you know, I have taken a pledge this time. I moved to Arizona in 2003 to retire after a career as an educator. And when I saw the systemic defunding of public education, I just couldn't sit idly by, so I almost immediately started preparing to be a candidate. And what I've seen in the 5 years that I've served Legislative District 2, a chipping away of the tax revenues in the state, which negatively impact our ability to fund public education. We had corporate tax cuts, and then we just have chip away at things. And it's really, so I've made a pledge not to sign on to any bill or to vote for any bill that reduces revenue or that reduces revenue or increases deductions that people can take on their tax returns or tax credits.
So that means you won't be supporting the tax break for diapers and tampons.
Yes, although that is a very good progressive bill, and I have a very good working relationship with my seatmate Daniel Hernandez. It is not the time for it. And the second part of my pledge is until the teachers receive a living wage and they restore the cuts that they've made to education since 2008. The K-12 schools are receiving $1.5 billion less than they did in 2008. The increases, and I'm not sure if they're showing down in Pima County, but up in when I'm in Maricopa, I see ads saying they've added all this money. Well, it's not new money. It's money from Proposition 123, and there's inflation money because we have inflation and we also have more students. So we have a bigger population base to serve and not enough money. So it's really hard. Today I did not vote to lower the income tax for veterans. We have a lot of veterans in the state, but only about 20% of them receive pensions having served 20 years. And it's a really good cause, and I support veterans. I represent Davis-Monthan Air Force Base and the VA hospital and the VA home, but we have to have people educated. A lot of the younger veterans have children in the schools, so they need to have good schools to send their kids. And I'm from more the Vietnam era, so I know that a lot of the men and women who served, there aren't adequate services for them for their post-traumatic stress and other physical problems that they're having as they age.
And the governor did call for more education funding in his budget. What did you think of his proposal?
Jim, last year I actually stood at the State of the State and applauded him. This year I was a little bit more skeptical because I did not see it materialize last year. There are 20% of the classrooms in the state have people without full certification. They're not professionals. They may have just a little bit of college. This is not the kind of support, the kind of resource our students need. Our students are our future, and we should have, we have enough teachers, we have enough certified teachers, but because the salaries are so appallingly low, people have left the profession.
And what about the higher education funding? For example, Pima Community College zeroed out in the budget. You think there's hope that that would be restored?
Well, I believe there's going to be a pitch for some money in the budget. It has been, I can't sit down to a meal with Council Member Richard Fimbres without him asking about this. We fought against these cuts, and it's just wrong that they're not receiving money. But there will be some targeted funding in the budget. People are working on it.
And how about funding for the freshman high school students who want to enroll in the JTED program, which is the Joint Technological District Center,
Jim,
basically vocational education?
Jim, I like to tell the story that I'm the only green guy in the Latino caucus. Most of my students in all of LD2 are Latino, and around 9th grade, that's when some of the boys get antsy about school, and there's a chance that they could drop out. So if you can get a 9th grader passionate about a skill that they can use and go to work and earn a decent salary. So the 9th grade restoration of the JTED money. We often do the hokey pokey not me, I don't orchestrate it, but this is what happened. Some of the Republicans cut the funding, the Democrats say, please don't, we need it, and then they put the money in and then they pat themselves on the back, when they restore it. But I think 9th grade JTED funding is crucial.
There's significant waiting list for low-income families who need subsidized daycare. We talked a little bit about this with Representative Powers Hanley earlier in the program. Do you foresee any more funding for that program?
I'm not sure what the lobbyists are doing. I know I would like to have more. I can remember when I was a freshman, people said, why do we have more kids in foster care? Well, if you cut the support services like subsidized daycare, then you're going to have more problems and more kids in foster care. Because
moms end up neglecting the kids because they have to leave them because they have to go to their jobs.
Balancing too many balls in the air at one time.
You've co-sponsored legislation calling for more auditors at the Department of Revenue, and why is that?
Yes. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, Jim, but only 25% of the corporations in Arizona pay anything more than a $50 filing fee. And so most of our revenue in the state comes from sales tax. And the corporations and the sales tax, without the auditors, people feel, some unscrupulous people feel they can get away with anything, and so if you need to be verifying their income and making sure that they're paying the correct amount of taxes. They were bringing in millions of dollars, so it was really penny wise and dollar foolish. They were letting people go and foregoing their salaries and benefits, but they're losing millions of dollars in tax revenue. So that is one of our caucus bills.
And you've got some charter school legislation. Do you think charter schools need to be held more accountable?
Yes, I do. Just this week in Glendale, a school closed without notice, leaving students, just up to go fend for themselves. So luckily, the local school district. I believe that I have a CPA tax accountant background, and I believe they should have the same level of reporting as traditional public schools. I've long supported a performance audit for charter schools, just like there are for public schools.
I noticed you've also sponsored some legislation to repeal the lifelong limit on access, which is the state's Medicaid program, which of course was expanded under
Right.
Governor Brewer through
Right.
the Affordable Care Act. But the legislature has passed some of these things and now asking for a waiver from the federal government to be able to enact some of these
Right.
restrictions on access. Folks, your thoughts on access and lifelong limits?
Well, you know, I didn't know Senator Andy Nichols, but some days I feel that he's on my shoulder because I know he fought for that. Many of the people on access are working poor. They are working, and people often portray them as, you know, they're staying home not doing anything, but a lot of them are either very sick or already working. We have to remember the roots of our access program. We were the last state to do Medicaid, and it really is a cost-effective system, and it's the voters' wishes. It's my understanding that it went to the voters twice, because the first time they didn't get the funding source right. This is what the voters, the people of Arizona, want. So I think to change it is wrong.
Yeah, there's some very complex water policy legislation floating around up there,
Yes.
sponsored by Gail Griffin from Cochise County. Your thoughts on what the governor and what some of your Republican lawmakers are looking to do with this water policy
Well,
changes?
I'm the ranking member of Natural Resources, Energy, and Water, and I know that during the summer the governor had stakeholder meetings about the CAP board, I haven't seen a bill for that yet. What I've been led to believe is that they would like to have one person make the decision rather than the 15 elected CAP board members in Pima, Pinal, and Maricopa. I don't know if we're actually going to see legislation on that, but I've talked to many of the members on the CAP board, and I know that they're flexible, and they come to a consensus, and they have to measure a lot of different variables to come to a good conclusion for most of the people in Arizona.
And it also seems as though some of it has to do with pushing back requirements for assured water supply and things of that nature, which the Sierra Club does not seem very
Right, and just this week we had a bill that was pulled from the committee agenda that wanted to allow people to build in places where there isn't water available to even fight fires. So luckily that was pulled, and a lot of the firefighters were there, and their associations, saying this is a bad, you know, I'm into consumer protection. If you're going to sell someone a home in Arizona, you should be able to have enough water to drink and take care of your needs, and to also fight fires.
What about criminal justice reform? I know that's something that Representative Engel from Tucson is pushing pretty hard, and your thoughts on some of those efforts?
Yes, well, I'm the only Southern Arizona on Senate Judiciary, and we have been working starting last year with criminal justice reform. And last year we got a few minor things through, but it was stopped in the House with Representative Eddie Farnsworth. But this year we're working ALEC and the American Friends. We have a bipartisan collaboration, and we realize that there needs to be change for different reasons, but we are working together, and I'm very encouraged that there'll be some meaningful reform. Some people, will never be able to pay their debts, and it's unconstitutional to have debtors' prisons. And I'm hoping that this session will go better.
No, we're just about out of time. Final question. You co-sponsored legislation for the Sonorosaurus to be the state dinosaur.
Yes, yes.
Tell us about the Sonorosaurus.
Yeah, yes. I don't know that much about it, but archaeology and history of Arizona I just love, and I look forward to learning more about it. We did we have copper as the state metal, and we have some other mineral that we did, wolfenite, I think it is, so.
I think we have a state gun, don't we?
Yes. I didn't vote for that one, though. I didn't vote for that one. But it's good for tourism, every kid loves a dinosaur and things, so.
All right, well, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for stopping by Zona Politics under Andrea D'Alessandro to talk about what's going on up at the state legislature.
My pleasure.
And that is our show for today. My thanks to our media partners at Tucson Weekly, Inside Inside Tucson Business and Community Radio KXCI 91.3 FM, where you can hear a radio version of Zona Politics Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. I'd also like to thank the folks here at Creative Tucson, the Community Media Center that helps us put together Zona Politics. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week.
Zona Politics is hosted by Tucson Weekly senior writer Jim Ninsel. The program is produced by Jennifer Powers Murphy and Danny Vinnick and edited by Jim Rundle. Special thanks to KXCI, Tucson Weekly, Brink Creative Digital, and all supporters who provide crucial funding for the program. Learn more about Zona Politics at zonapolitics.com and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter.